Tammy Lynn Leppert. Now, if you've never heard that name before, let me tell you, you're in for a wild, tragic, and absolutely mysterious ride. Because this isn't just any Hollywood story. This is a story about a young woman with everything, beauty, talent, fame, who one day just vanished into thin air. But before we get into the terrifying details of her disappearance, let's start with who she was. Because Tammy wasn't just any small-town girl with big dreams. No, she was the kind of person who had that natural glow, the one that made people stop and take notice. Tammy was born on February 5th, 1965, in Rockledge, Florida. From the moment she could walk and talk, she was already on stage. Literally. Her mother, Linda Curtis, was a beauty pageant coach and talent agent, so Tammy was basically born to be in the spotlight. And trust me, she was really, really good at it. By the time she was just 4 years old, she was competing in pageants and winning. We're not talking about a couple of small trophies on the shelf here. Tammy was dominating the beauty pageant world. Before she even hit her teenage years, she had racked up over 300 beauty pageant titles. 300. Let that sink in. She was Florida's golden girl, blonde hair, bright smile, and a confidence that made her stand out. But Tammy wasn't just about pageants. She was also a model, appearing in ads, commercials, and magazines. By the time she was a teenager, she had already built a name for herself in the modeling industry, landing photo shoots with major publications and working on local TV commercials. But here's the thing. Tammy didn't just want to stand in front of the camera and smile for pictures. She wanted more. She wanted to be a star, a real, bona fide Hollywood actress. And unlike a lot of people who just talk about their dreams, Tammy was actually making it happen. By the early 1980s, she had started breaking into the film industry. Now, we're not talking about small-time, local productions here. Tammy was getting cast in major Hollywood films. One of her first big breaks was in the 1983 movie Spring Break. Now, if you haven't seen it, Spring Break was one of those cheesy, beachy 80s teen comedies, the kind with lots of partying, neon swimsuits, and a whole lot of questionable life choices. Tammy played a pretty blonde girl in a bikini. Not exactly an Oscar-winning role, but hey, it was a start. It got her foot in the door, and more importantly, it proved that she could hold her own on a film set. And then came the big one, the role that should have been her launchpad to fame. In 1983, Tammy landed a small part in Scarface. Yes, Scarface. The same Scarface that starred Al Pacino as Tony Montana, the most ruthless, trigger-happy drug kingpin ever. Tammy played a party girl in one of the movie's most famous scenes, the one where Tony Montana walks into a high-end club, surrounded by Miami's elite. Now imagine this. You're 18 years old, you're standing on a Hollywood set with Al freaking Pacino, and you're in what would later become one of the most iconic gangster movies of all time. That should have been it. That should have been her golden ticket to stardom. Except it wasn't, because something was happening behind the scenes. Something dark. Something that would change everything. Around the same time she was filming Scarface, Tammy started acting strange. She was no longer the confident, carefree girl everyone knew. She became paranoid, anxious. She told friends and family that she felt like she was in danger. But from who? And more importantly, why? No one knew the answer. Not even Tammy. Or if she did, she wasn't telling. And then, just weeks after filming her part in Scarface, she quit acting altogether. She told her mother she was scared for her life, that she couldn't trust anyone, that someone was trying to hurt her. Her mom, Linda, was obviously concerned, but Tammy refused to say what had her so terrified. She only hinted that she had seen something she wasn't supposed to. What did she see? A crime? A murder? A drug deal gone bad? No one knows. But what we do know is that Tammy's life was about to take a turn for the worse. And in just a few short months, she would disappear forever. In 1983, something changed in Tammy Lynn Leppert. And I'm not talking about a normal kind of change. I'm talking about a drastic, terrifying, full-on shift in her entire personality. One minute, she was this bright, outgoing, confident young woman, the kind of person who could light up a room just by walking into it. She had spent years in the spotlight, competing in beauty pageants, modeling, and acting in films. She was making a name for herself, rubbing shoulders with Hollywood elites. Her life was on track for something great. And then, out of nowhere, everything changed. It started small, just little things at first. She seemed a little more distant, a little more on edge. Friends noticed that she was less talkative, more withdrawn. But as the weeks went on, it became impossible to ignore. Tammy was acting paranoid. Not just a little paranoid, either. We're talking full-blown, terrified for her life paranoid. She started telling people, her friends, her family, anyone who would listen, that she was being watched, that someone was after her, that she was in danger. At first, people brushed it off. I mean, she was a young actress in Hollywood, surrounded by fast-moving people, high-pressure situations. Maybe she was just stressed. Maybe she was just dealing with the realities of trying to make it in the industry. But this was different. One day, she sat down with her mother, Linda, and told her something shocking. She said that she had seen something she wasn't supposed to. Now, what exactly did she mean by that? That's the million-dollar question. Tammy refused to give details. She wouldn't say where she saw it. She wouldn't say who was involved. She wouldn't even say what it was. All she would say was that it was bad. Bad enough that she was afraid for her life. Bad enough that she started acting like she was in a real-life horror movie. She stopped eating. Her mother would make her favorite meals, but she would barely touch them. She lost weight fast. It was like she was constantly on edge, constantly waiting for something terrible to happen. She stopped being alone. Tammy, who had always been independent, confident, fearless, now refused to stay in a room by herself. She had to be around people at all times. It was like she thought that if she was left alone, that would be the moment they, whoever they were, would come for her. She started barricading her bedroom windows. Let that sink in. This wasn't just locking the doors at night. She was physically barricading the windows. That's not normal. That's not something you do unless you genuinely, absolutely believe that someone is coming for you. She became obsessed with security, always looking over her shoulder, constantly checking to see if someone was following her. And then, things got even weirder. One night, she went to a friend's house for a sleepover. A normal night, just hanging out. Except, when she was there, she suddenly had a full-blown breakdown. She started crying uncontrollably. She was shaking, hyperventilating. Her friend tried to calm her down, asking her what was wrong. And that's when she said it. She said that someone was going to kill her. And she meant it. Her friend tried to reassure her, telling her she was just overthinking, that everything was fine. But Tammy wasn't having it. She kept repeating it. They're going to kill me. And this wasn't some dramatic exaggeration. She wasn't being over the top or trying to get attention. She was terrified, and nobody knew why. Her mother begged her to tell her what was going on. Who was after her? What did she see? But Tammy wouldn't talk. She just kept saying she knew too much. That was it. She knew something. Something dangerous. Something that made her go from a carefree, Hollywood-bound actress to a paranoid, terrified shell of herself. Then came the final straw. Tammy was on the set of Scarface, filming her small role in the iconic nightclub scene. This should have been an exciting moment. Working on a major Hollywood film with Al Pacino, a career-defining opportunity. But instead of feeling excited, Tammy was terrified. Something happened on set that day. We don't know what. But whatever it was, it pushed her over the edge. Because that was the day she told her mother that she needed to get out. She left the set and never went back. She told her mother that someone was trying to poison her. Poison her. Tammy truly, deeply believed that someone had tried to slip something into her drink or food. She believed that someone was trying to kill her, and she needed to get away. At this point, her mother knew something was very, very wrong. She considered taking Tammy to a doctor, thinking maybe she was having a breakdown, maybe there was some kind of psychological issue at play. But Tammy refused. She insisted that she wasn't crazy, that what she was saying was real, that she really was in danger. And then, just a few weeks later, she disappeared, vanished, gone. And to this day, no one knows exactly what she was so afraid of. No one knows who she thought was after her. No one knows what she saw, what secret she was keeping, what knowledge might have put her life in danger. And that's what makes this story so haunting. Because what if she was right? What if someone really was after her? And what if, whoever they were, they finally got her? Tammy Lynn Leppert was on the brink of something big. She had spent her life working toward this moment. Beauty pageants, modeling gigs, small acting roles, all leading up to the dream that so many chase, but few actually reach: Hollywood. And in 1983, she got it. She landed a small role in Scarface, one of the most highly anticipated films of the decade. Now, was it a starring role? No, but it didn't need to be. This was Scarface. Al Pacino, Brian De Palma. Big budget, big names. Just being on that set was a ticket to more opportunities, to bigger roles, to the kind of career that she had always dreamed of. But instead of feeling excited, instead of being thrilled to be part of something legendary, Tammy was scared. No, she was more than scared. She was terrified. Something had already been weighing on her for weeks, something dark and unspoken. Friends and family had noticed the shift, how she went from being bubbly, confident, and full of life to being constantly on edge, paranoid, convinced that something bad was about to happen. And on the set of Scarface, it all came to a breaking point. Tammy showed up for filming as usual. She had a small part in the nightclub scene, playing one of the glamorous women in the club, where Tony Montana watches his empire grow. It was a scene filled with flashing lights, beautiful people, and the kind of high-energy, 80s excess that defined the movie. But while everyone else was focused on the scene, on the cameras, on the choreography of the club, Tammy was focused on something else. She was watching her surroundings, watching people. And then, at some point during that day, she snapped. She told the production crew that something was wrong, that she wasn't safe, that she needed to leave. People were confused. What do you mean you need to leave? We're filming. But she wouldn't budge. She had to go. She was convinced, absolutely convinced, that someone was trying to poison her. Now, think about how extreme that is. This wasn't just, oh, I feel a little sick, or I think something is off. No, she believed, deep in her soul, that someone was actively trying to kill her. She wouldn't eat, wouldn't drink. She didn't trust anything or anyone. Her mother later said that Tammy told her she thought someone had slipped something into her drink or food on set. She believed there was an attempt to silence her. Silence her from what? We don't know. We only know that whatever she had seen, whatever she had discovered in the weeks leading up to that day, had completely shattered her. Some people wonder, was there someone on the set of Scarface who she was afraid of? Someone involved in something bigger, something dangerous? Scarface was a movie about drugs, crime, power, and corruption. But behind the scenes, real-life crime was everywhere. Hollywood in the 1980s wasn't exactly the clean, polished industry that people imagined. It was a world where crime and entertainment blurred together, where powerful people had dark secrets, where drugs were everywhere, and sometimes the wrong people saw the wrong things. What if Tammy saw something she wasn't supposed to? What if, somewhere in the process of getting involved in Hollywood, she ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time? What if she was right? What if someone really was trying to get rid of her? She left the Scarface set that day and never returned. That moment, her walking away from what could have been her big break, was the final sign that something was horribly, horribly wrong. Her mother tried to calm her down, tried to tell her everything was okay, but Tammy wouldn't hear it. She kept saying someone was out to get her. She became more and more withdrawn, refusing to eat, refusing to go anywhere alone. And then, just a few weeks later, she disappeared. Gone. Vanished. To this day, no one knows what really happened. Did she really see something that put her life in danger? Was she really being followed, being watched, being targeted? Or was something else going on? Was she having a mental breakdown? A psychotic episode? Some people think that maybe she was struggling with something deeper, maybe something undiagnosed, maybe something that made her believe she was in danger when, in reality, there was no one after her at all. But then again, where did she go? If Tammy had simply run away, there would have been some sign of her eventually, right? A sighting, a clue, a body. But there's nothing. No trace. No answers. Just a girl who walked away from her dream, convinced that she was being hunted, and then vanished into thin air. Tammy Lynn Leppert had always been an open book. She was the kind of person who loved to talk, to share stories, to be the center of attention. That's what made her so magnetic. She had that energy, that spark that made people stop and listen. But then, in early 1983, something changed. Suddenly, she wasn't talking as much. She wasn't sharing. She wasn't herself. And then, one day, she told her mother something that would haunt her forever. She said that she had witnessed something. Something dangerous. Something at a party. But she wouldn't say what. Now, imagine you're a mother, Linda Curtis. You know your daughter better than anyone. You've watched her grow from a little girl with big dreams into a beautiful young woman on the verge of stardom. And now, out of nowhere, she's terrified. She's telling you that she saw something she wasn't supposed to see, that she's in danger. But no matter how much you beg her, no matter how much you plead for details, she won't tell you what it was. And that's what makes this so chilling. She wasn't just acting paranoid. She was hiding something. She had seen something real, something so terrifying that she refused to speak of it, even to the one person she trusted the most. And from that moment on, she was never the same. She started acting like someone was following her, watching her, waiting for the right moment to strike. She stopped eating food from strangers, even from friends. She refused to drink anything unless it was from her own home. It was like she truly believed that if she let her guard down for even a second, she would be gone. But what exactly had she seen? Was it a murder? Was a drug deal gone bad? Was it something even worse? Something connected to the dark underbelly of Hollywood? Some people believe that the party she went to was no ordinary party. This was the early 1980s, and back then, Hollywood's elite had a different kind of nightlife. These weren't just fun gatherings with drinks and music. These were exclusive parties hidden behind locked doors, where the powerful and wealthy could do whatever they wanted. People whispered about what really happened at these parties. Drugs, organized crime, things far worse than anyone wanted to admit. And maybe, just maybe, Tammy witnessed something that she was never meant to see. But if that was the case, why didn't she just tell someone? Why didn't she go to the police? Why didn't she confide in her mother? Maybe because she knew that whoever was involved was powerful. Maybe because she knew that if she talked, she wouldn't live to see another day. And then, as the days passed, her fear grew stronger. She told her mom that she was in danger, but she never told her why. She wouldn't name names. She wouldn't give details. She just kept looking over her shoulder, flinching at every sound, closing every window, locking every door. She stopped sleeping well. She stopped trusting anyone. And then it all reached a breaking point. She was supposed to be on the verge of stardom. She had just finished working on Scarface, one of the biggest films of the decade. But instead of celebrating, instead of being excited for what was next, she quit acting completely. Just like that. She walked away. Because whatever she had seen, whatever she had witnessed at that party, had convinced her that she would not survive in this world much longer. And then, one day, she was gone. Vanished. Disappeared without a trace. Did she run away? Did someone finally silence her? Or did she just know that it was only a matter of time? To this day, no one knows. But one thing is certain. Tammy saw something, and whatever it was enough to cost her everything. It was July 6th, 1983, a hot, humid summer day in Rockledge, Florida. Tammy Lynn Leppert, just 18 years old, was at home with her mother, Linda Curtis. She had been acting strange for weeks now, paranoid, anxious, and convinced that someone was trying to harm her. She had told her mother she had seen something dangerous, something she wasn't supposed to, and she was terrified that she was being watched. And then, that morning, she made a decision. She was leaving. She told her mother that she needed to go out for a bit, that she was going to run some errands with a friend. That friend was Keith Roberts. Keith wasn't just some random acquaintance. He was someone Tammy knew, someone she trusted, or at least someone she trusted enough to get into a car with. Now, remember, Tammy had been extremely on edge lately. She didn't trust anyone. She was afraid to be alone, afraid to go anywhere without looking over her shoulder. So why did she choose to leave with Keith? Maybe she thought she was safe with him. Maybe she felt like she could finally get out of the house and clear her mind. But whatever her reasons were, she left that day, and she never came back. Keith later told authorities that he had driven her around town, running errands, just like she said. But at some point, something changed. They got into an argument. Now, Keith never fully explained what the argument was about, but whatever was said, it made Tammy want to get out of the car. He claimed that she asked to be dropped off in Cocoa Beach, a few miles from home. He said she told him she wanted to be alone, that she was fine, that she'd figure things out on her own. And so, Keith left her there, alone, on the side of the road, in the Florida heat. And that was it. Tammy was never seen again. No one saw her walking down the street. No one saw her getting into another car. No one saw her in a store or at a gas station. She vanished. Now, here's where things get weird. Tammy had been afraid, deeply, genuinely afraid, for weeks before this. She had told her mother that she was in danger, that someone wanted her dead, that she had seen something terrible. And then, suddenly, she disappears without a trace. People started asking questions. Why did she argue with Keith? What was said that made her want to leave? And, most importantly, was Keith telling the whole truth? Keith Roberts was the last person to ever see Tammy alive. And yet, when the police started asking questions, when people started pushing for more details, Keith didn't cooperate. He refused to take a polygraph test. He refused to answer follow-up questions. And to this day, no one knows what really happened in that car before Tammy got out. Some believe Keith was hiding something, that maybe Tammy didn't just walk away that day, that maybe something happened in that car, something that Keith didn't want anyone to know. Others believe that Keith really did leave her there. But if that's true, then where did she go? Tammy had no money, no extra clothes, no real plan. If she had run away, wouldn't she have eventually resurfaced? Wouldn't someone have seen her? But no one ever did. No phone calls, no postcards, no sightings, nothing. It was as if she had simply stepped off the edge of the earth. Her mother never gave up searching for her. She put up flyers, contacted police, pleaded with the media. She chased every lead, every rumor, every tip, but none of them led anywhere. Some people believe that Tammy was telling the truth all along, that someone really was after her, that she had been marked for death the moment she saw whatever it was at that party, and that on July 6th, they finally got her. But if that's true, then who was behind it? And why did no one ever come forward with answers? Keith Roberts was never charged with any crime related to Tammy's disappearance. To this day, He maintains that he had nothing to do with whatever happened to her. But if that's true, then we're left with one terrifying possibility. That Tammy, a young woman who had everything ahead of her, who had a future in Hollywood, who had dreams bigger than the sky, was taken, silenced, erased, and that, somewhere out there, someone still knows exactly what happened to her. Keith Roberts told police that he dropped Tammy Lynn Leppert off near Cocoa Beach on July 6, 1983. That was his story. That was the last time he claimed to have seen her. But here's the thing. There was no sign of her. No one else saw Tammy that day. No shop owners. No gas station clerks. No passers-by who remembered a beautiful 18-year-old girl stranded on the side of the road in the sweltering Florida heat. No one. Think about that for a second. Cocoa Beach wasn't some deserted highway in the middle of nowhere. It was a public area, a beach town filled with people. There were locals, tourists, businesses, traffic. And yet, after the moment Keith claims he left her there, Tammy simply ceased to exist. No one saw her walking down the road. No one saw her trying to hitch a ride. No one saw her at a bus stop, in a restaurant, in a store. Nothing. So that begs the question, was Keith telling the truth? Let's break this down. According to Keith, he and Tammy had been driving around town, running errands, when suddenly they got into an argument. Now, Keith never fully explained what the argument was about, but whatever it was, Tammy wanted out of the car. She asked to be dropped off near Cocoa Beach. And so, Keith said he let her out and drove away. That's it. That's his version of events. But that explanation leaves so many unanswered questions. First, what was the argument about? Tammy had been acting paranoid for weeks. She had told multiple people that she was afraid for her life, that she thought someone was going to kill her. So what was said in that car that made her so upset that she wanted to be left alone in a vulnerable position miles from home? Second, why did Keith refuse to cooperate with police after Tammy disappeared? If he was innocent, why not do everything possible to help find her? Instead, when the investigation started, he refused to take a polygraph test. He refused to give additional details. He distanced himself from the situation as much as possible. Now, refusing a polygraph isn't necessarily proof of guilt. Those tests aren't always reliable. But it does make you wonder, what was he afraid of? Was he hiding something? And if he was, what happened to Tammy after she got out of that car? Here's where things get even stranger. Let's assume for a moment that Keith was telling the truth, that he really did drop Tammy off near Cocoa Beach. Then what? Tammy had no money. She wasn't carrying any bags, no extra clothes, no supplies. She had nothing. So what exactly was she planning to do? It's not like she had a plan to meet someone. If she had, why has no one ever come forward? She also didn't have a car, which meant she had no way to leave town. So, if she was truly alone, standing on the side of the road, what happened next? There are a few possibilities. One theory is that Tammy decided to hitchhike. It was the 80s and hitchhiking was still fairly common. If she was desperate to get away, maybe she waved down a car, got in, and that was the last mistake she ever made. If she had been picked up by the wrong person, someone dangerous, it would explain why she was never seen again. Another possibility is that someone was already following her. Remember, Tammy was convinced that she was being watched, that she had seen something she wasn't supposed to. What if she was right? What if someone had been waiting for the right moment to strike? Think about it. Tammy had been with her mother every day, locked in the house, too afraid to go anywhere alone. But on July 6th, she finally left. She got in a car with Keith. Then Keith dropped her off alone. That could have been the opportunity that someone was waiting for. If that's the case, if someone was watching her, then the moment she stepped out of Keith's car, she was vulnerable. And maybe, just maybe, she never even made it past the curb. Another terrifying theory is that Tammy never actually got dropped off at all. What if Keith lied? What if something happened before they even reached Cocoa Beach? What if the argument in the car turned into something more? There are people who believe that Tammy never left that vehicle alive, that the reason no one saw her after that day is because Keith was the last person to ever lay eyes on her. If that's true, then everything he said to the police was a cover story, and whatever really happened to Tammy never made it to Cocoa Beach. The police searched the area where Keith claimed to have left her, but there were no signs of her anywhere. No reports of a girl matching her description. No abandoned belongings. No leads. It was like she had been erased. Tammy's mother, Linda Curtis, never believed that her daughter just disappeared voluntarily. She knew something was wrong. She chased every lead, called the police constantly, put up missing person flyers everywhere she could, but nothing ever came of it. Years passed, decades passed, and still, no one knows the truth about what happened that day. All we know is that Keith Roberts said he dropped Tammy off near Cocoa Beach, but there was no sign of her, no trace, no witnesses, no answers, just an 18-year-old girl, full of promise, full of potential, full of fear, who walked out a car and was never seen again. Tammy Lynn Leppert's disappearance has baffled investigators and true crime enthusiasts for decades. How does an 18-year-old girl, a rising star in the entertainment world, vanish without a trace? No phone calls, no sightings, no evidence, just gone. When someone disappears under such mysterious circumstances, theories are inevitable. People start asking questions, trying to put the pieces together, and soon, speculation runs wild. Was it a serial killer? A drug cartel? A personal betrayal? The truth is, there are many possibilities, but none of them lead to definitive answers. Only more questions. One of the most chilling theories is that Tammy was the victim of a serial killer. The early 1980s were a dangerous time, especially for young women. Across Florida, there were multiple cases of women disappearing, only to later be found murdered, their bodies dumped in remote locations. Some of these cases were linked to Christopher Wilder, also known as the Beauty Queen Killer. Now, Wilder was a terrifying predator. He specifically targeted young, beautiful women, models, aspiring actresses, pageant contestants. He would lure them in by offering them opportunities in the entertainment or modeling industries. And once he had them alone, he would attack. Does that sound familiar? Tammy was a model, a beauty queen, an aspiring actress. She fit his victim profile perfectly. And even more disturbing, Wilder was active in Florida at the same time Tammy disappeared. He would later go on a cross-country killing spree before being shot and killed in 1984. So, could Tammy have been one of his early victims? Maybe she was already on his radar. Maybe he approached her with promises of modeling work. Maybe, just maybe, she even suspected something was off, which is why she had been acting so paranoid before she disappeared. The problem is, if Wilder did kill Tammy, why was her body never found? Most of his victims were eventually discovered. But Tammy? Nothing. So, if it wasn't a serial killer, what else could have happened? Some people believe that Tammy's disappearance had something to do with drug cartels. Now, this might sound like a stretch at first, but if you look a little closer, it starts to make sense. Florida in the early 1980s was a hotbed for drug smuggling operations. Miami was flooded with cocaine, and powerful drug cartels were operating right under the nose of law enforcement. There were secret deals, violent disputes, and, most importantly, people who saw things they weren't supposed to see. And what do we know about Tammy? We know that, before she disappeared, she told her mother that she witnessed something dangerous at a party, something that made her afraid for her life. What if that something was connected to drug trafficking? There were whispers that Hollywood and Florida's entertainment scene were deeply entangled with the drug trade. Big money was moving around, and people in high places were involved. What if Tammy accidentally saw a drug deal go bad? Or worse, what if she witnessed a murder? If that's true, it would explain why she was so scared. She wasn't just paranoid, she was in real danger. And maybe when she disappeared, it wasn't because she ran away or got lost. Maybe someone silenced her. Because here's the thing, when it comes to powerful people and organized crime, witnesses don't last long. If Tammy had knowledge that could have exposed something or someone, she wouldn't have stood chance. But then, there's another theory, one that's even more personal. What if Tammy was betrayed by someone close to her? People have always been suspicious of Keith Roberts, the last person to see her alive. He claimed he dropped her off near Cocoa Beach, but police never found any evidence to back up his story. And when they started pressing him for answers, he refused to cooperate. He wouldn't take a polygraph. He wouldn't answer more questions. He just walked away. Now, think about that for a second. If you were the last person to see someone alive, and you were innocent, wouldn't you want to do everything in your power to prove that? Why refuse a polygraph? Why refuse to work with investigators? Unless, of course, you had something to hide. There are some people who believe that whatever argument Tammy and Keith had in the car that day, it wasn't minor. That maybe it got heated. That maybe it turned violent. What if Tammy never made it to Cocoa Beach at all? What if Keith's story about dropping her off was a cover-up? If that's the case, then he would have had the entire day to dispose of evidence before anyone realized Tammy was missing. And if that's true, then he may have been the one who silenced her. So, was it a serial killer? A drug cartel? A personal betrayal? The terrifying thing is, we may never know. Tammy didn't just disappear. She was erased. There was no body, no crime scene, no clues. Just an 18-year-old girl with her whole life ahead of her, who saw something she wasn't supposed to see, told people she was in danger, and then vanished into thin air. And somewhere out there, someone still knows exactly what happened to her. There's always a theory that comes up in cases like this, one that seems simple, easy to digest, and for some, comforting. The idea that Tammy Lynn Leppert chose to disappear, that she ran away from home, walked away from her life, and started fresh somewhere else. It's a nice thought, right? The idea that she wasn't murdered, that she wasn't kidnapped, that she didn't suffer a horrible fate. Instead, she simply left. She's out there somewhere, living under a new name, far away from the dangers she feared. But here's the problem with that theory. There's no evidence to support it. Not a single piece. Think about it. If Tammy had run away, wouldn't she have needed money? Wouldn't she have needed resources? Wouldn't she have needed a plan? She didn't have any of those things. Tammy left home that morning in a light blue shirt with flowers on it, a denim skirt, and flip-flops. No suitcase, no purse, no credit cards, no ID, nothing. That's not what a runaway looks like. People who run away prepare. They stash cash, they pack bags, they think about where they're going. They don't just walk off in flip-flops with no plan. And let's say, just for a second, that she did somehow figure out. That she got in a car with someone, or she took a bus, or she got on a plane. What then? It's been over 40 years. Not a single bank transaction. Not a single piece of mail. Not a single phone call. No one has ever reported seeing her again. Now, here's something important to consider. Tammy was not the kind of person who would just disappear. She loved attention. She was a model, an actress, a beauty queen. She loved being in front of the camera. She was ambitious, and she wanted to be famous. Would someone like that really vanish into obscurity? Would someone like that give up their dream of being in the spotlight? And what about her family? Tammy was close to her mother, Linda Curtis. She told her everything. They had a strong relationship. Linda was her biggest supporter, always pushing her toward success, always believing in her. Would Tammy really abandon her? Never call her? Never write her? Never try to reach out, even once? That doesn't make sense. Even in cases where people run away, they usually surface again at some point. They slip up. They make a phone call. They use their real name. They reach out to an old friend. But Tammy? Nothing. It's like she was wiped off the face of the earth. If she had started over, you would think, after all these years, someone would have recognized her. Her face was everywhere. TV specials, news reports, missing person flyers, true crime documentaries. Even if she changed her hair, changed her name, changed her entire life, her face is still out there. Yet, there has never been a credible sighting. And then there's the biggest question of all. Why would she run away? She was already on the brink of stardom. She had just filmed roles in major movies. She had the chance to become a huge actress. If she was in danger, why wouldn't she go to the police? Why wouldn't she tell someone what she knew? Instead, she disappears in a thin air. It doesn't add up. Some people argue that maybe she was scared, that whatever she witnessed at that party, whatever she wasn't supposed to see, was so terrifying that she had no choice but to run. That sounds like a possibility at first, but let's really think about it. If Tammy had knowledge that could put her life in danger, would she really have been able to hide for this long? People who run from powerful criminals, from cartels, from those who want to silence them, they don't just vanish and live happily ever after. They slip up. They're found. But there's no indication that anyone ever went looking for Tammy after she disappeared. No threats to her family. No strange phone calls. No messages saying, "Tell Tammy to keep her mouth shut." Nothing. If she had information that made her a target, wouldn't there have been some kind of sign that she was running from something? But there was nothing. And that's the part that makes the runaway theory so unlikely. Because for it to be true, Tammy would have had to completely erase herself. Never use her social security number. Never make a bank deposit. Never get a driver's license. Never make a mistake. That's nearly impossible. People slip up. They reach out. They reconnect with their past at some point. But Tammy never did. So, if she didn't run away, what really happened to her? And who was responsible for making sure she was never seen again? Tammy Lynn Leppert vanished on July 6th, 1983, and from that moment on, it was as if she had never existed. No trace of her was ever found. No body, no remains, nothing. Cases like this don't just happen. People don't simply disappear without leaving something behind. A clue, a trail, a shred of evidence. And yet, Tammy was gone, swallowed up by the unknown, leaving behind only questions that have haunted investigators and true crime followers for decades. There are two kinds of missing person cases. There are those where the outcome, while tragic, eventually becomes clear. A body is found. A confession is made. The mystery, in some form, gets solved. And then there are cases like Tammy's, the kind that sit in cold case files, untouched by time, offering nothing but speculation and dead ends. The fact that Tammy's body was never found is significant. It changes everything. It means that whatever happened to her, someone made sure she would never be discovered. Think about it. If Tammy had simply run away and met with an accident, her body would have turned up eventually. If she had drowned, the ocean would have given her back. If she had wandered into the wilderness, nature would have left something behind, bones, clothing, some kind of sign that she had once been there. But there was nothing, which means someone went to great lengths to make sure she stayed missing. The only logical explanation is that Tammy didn't just disappear. She was erased. This is where the theories start to spin out of control. Was she killed by someone close to her? If so, that person would have needed enough time, knowledge, and access to dispose of her body so completely that no one ever found it. That's not easy to do. Even the most meticulous criminals make mistakes. Bodies are buried, only to be uncovered years later by construction crews, or animals. Bodies are dumped in lakes or oceans, but currents shift, and the water always has a way of revealing what it hides. Even bodies that are deliberately destroyed, burned, dismembered, concealed in the deepest places imaginable, almost always leave something behind. Yet with Tammy, there is nothing. So either whoever was responsible for her disappearance was extremely skilled, extremely lucky, or part of something much bigger. Could she have been taken by someone with the resources to cover it up? Organized crime? Human traffickers? A corrupt individual with the power to wipe out all traces of her existence? It sounds extreme, but the lack of evidence makes it a possibility that can't be ignored. And what about the other terrifying alternative, that she is still out there, but in a way no one wants to imagine? Not alive in the sense that she's living a happy life somewhere, but alive and trapped. What if Tammy was taken? What if, for the last 40 years, she has been somewhere against her will, unable to reach out, unable to escape, existing in the shadows where no one can find her? It's an unthinkable scenario, but it happens. People disappear into the world of human trafficking, forced into situations where they can never resurface. And the longer they are missing, the harder it is to ever find them again. But even if that theory is true, even if she was taken and held captive, there should have been some kind of clue, some indication that she had been seen. A name in a database, a sighting by a witness, something. But again, there's nothing. And that's what makes this case so disturbing. When someone goes missing, there is usually a break, a tip, a clue, a discovery years later that changes everything. But with Tammy, it's as if she never existed past July 6th, 1983. And that is the most haunting part of all, because somewhere out there, someone knows what happened. Someone knows where she went. Someone knows why she was never found. And that person has kept that secret for more than 4 decades. Her body was never recovered. Her case remains unsolved. And until the truth is uncovered, until someone comes forward, until something, anything, surfaces, Tammy Lynn Leppert remains exactly what she became that day in 1983. A mystery without an ending. To this day, Tammy Lynn Leppert's disappearance is one of Hollywood's most chilling mysteries, a case that continues to haunt those who remember her, and a story that has never truly been solved. Her name may not be as widely recognized as some other stars from her era, but for those who know her story, her vanishing is a lingering shadow over the glamour and fame of Hollywood in the early 1980s. Tammy was young, full of promise, and just on the cusp of making it big. She had the looks, the talent, and the drive to become a household name. She had appeared in notable films like Scarface and Spring Break, roles that introduced her to the world and hinted at a career on the rise. Yet in a flash, it all disappeared. One moment, she was on set, chasing her dreams, and the next, she was gone, vanishing without a trace. No body was ever found, and no answers ever surfaced to explain why this young woman, with so much potential ahead of her, would simply disappear into thin air. The unsettling part of this story is that it doesn't just speak to the dangers of Hollywood. It speaks to the darker realities of the world that lie behind the glitz and glam of the silver screen. Tammy's case is a reminder that in Hollywood, not all stories are fairy tales, and not all dreams come true. Some end in mystery, disappearance, and unanswered questions. Her disappearance wasn't just another tragic loss. It was an event that left behind a series of unsettling and unanswered questions. Why did she leave her life behind without any warning? Why did she feel like someone was after her? And most haunting of all, why has no one been able to solve this case for over 40 years? Tammy's life, which was supposed to be filled with the excitement of fame and success, ended in the ultimate tragedy. She was forgotten. But as the years have passed, she has never truly been erased from people's memories. Her story remains one of Hollywood's darkest, most chilling mysteries. It's the kind of case that sticks with you. You can't help but wonder what might have happened, what went wrong, and what part of Hollywood's dangerous underbelly played a role in her disappearance. Her name, her face, and the mystery surrounding her life and death remain unsolved, reminding us that not every Hollywood story is one that ends with a bow tied neatly at the end. Some stories are left unfinished, hanging in the air, unresolved and unfinished, like the fading echo of a once promising star that disappeared too soon.